Hello everybody, welcome to the GCM Scale Garage. Today we're going to have a look at our new truck, which is called Needs Work. This is GCM's first Toyota build, and we are using a TF2 body, and we got a whole bunch of surprises in store here for this truck to show off to you. So we're going to just introduce this truck to you in this way. And first of all, I want to show you some of the outside details here. We've got this thing lit up like a Christmas tree on both sides, and as you can see, there's a little something hanging out the tail here, something that will eventually be linked onto some D-rings and whatnot, but for now the rear winch is ready to go. We'll show you what's going on in the nose. Up front we've got the front winch here also ready to go. And no fair leads or nothing. This is a real simple truck that, as we say, needs work. We are using GCM 1.9 rims here, but we're using an RC4 wheel drive 155 tire. This is their rock crusher in a 155. It's about 3.8 diameter, perfect for a class 1, and there's the part number here. These tires are sticky. I'm talking really sticky, and because of that we're able to get some really intense traction with this truck. The suspension is pretty unique on it. We're going to show that off as well. The signal lamps here are all lit up, as well as the headlamps, and we've got some really creative body mounting and stuff to show off here too. So first of all, let me get this body off, and because this truck is intended for lots of hard use, we're going to solid mount the body as opposed to using clips or pins or anything like that. So at this point we're using screws to mount the body, and it's a pretty simple thing, as you can see, to get this taken apart. There's 2 screws here on the rear valance, and the reason we did that is because if you ever drag rocks in the back, this whole section here is pretty free. We don't want it to rip off, so we're going to just solid mount it right onto the back winch mount. There's also 2 screws in the bed here, and they lock right onto what turned out to be the rear shock tower. So here's the first surprise. After we get this winch line shoved through here back into the frame, this section just opens up, and there we go. So let's have a look at what's happening here with this with our Toyota build. As you can see, there's a lot of truck jammed into here. Some of you will recognize that this is the same layout that we used on the GCM multi-stage Dingo build. In fact, this is the same frame that we used on the GCM multi-stage Dingo. And we've now moved it from an SCX-10 Dingo kit to a full custom body now with total suspension revision again. And we're going to give you some highlights on that and what's going on with that. So first of all, let's have a look at what's happening in the truck here. Now, I want to first highlight that the rear suspension here is totally unique. As you can see, we've got a really small shock tower on it. Really small. And this tiny shock tower is important because the truck bed lays right on here. We're trying to keep everything as low profile as possible in the truck. We've got the TZI winch mounted up front here, you can see, on the GCM dual servo mount for SCX. Our 430 ounce servo will be more than enough for these little tires. We're using a Tekin 35 turn custom motor. This might be a Tekin can and whatnot, but the whole thing has been remachined and everything by a custom motor guy, and it's a really smooth, super quiet motor. Of course, we're using the RC4 wheel drive AX2 Transmission, which is a 2-speed, shifted over here by our little 9-gram aircraft servo. We used to have the 2 boxes stacked here. We had the speed control box as you see it here, and we also had a radio box stacked on top of it, but because the truck is going to have an interior, we wanted to lower everything And so we've moved the radio box over here now. So the radio box has been dropped to the same level. The only thing in this entire system that's actually electronics that are exposed is the plugs here for our HeyOK light controller and our master switch. All the other electronics in the truck, including the front and the rear winch as well, they're all totally waterproofed. So this truck is ready to be dunked. Now, we want to highlight a couple other things here. If you have a look at the suspension geometry, it sits really low and it's very flat. The entire weight of the truck is basically at the frame level. The only thing that sticks above the frame is really the motor, and then of course the interior and the body will be on there. But other than that, that's it. Now, how did we get away with the suspension travel with this tiny little back suspension here? Now, I might as well show you that, because the way that we build our comp trucks, which is what this is a class 1 comp truck. This truck has these tiny little sedan shocks, and they don't move much, as you can see. That's it. If you compare the rear axle with the frame, there's not much going on there. But what we also want to highlight is that up in the front, we've got some 85mm shocks up front. Try to roll this thing back here. Tires are really sticky, so it won't drag. We have a look here. The shocks in the front are basically compressed as you see them right now. So when the truck is in a raised position, there's tons and tons of travel on there. Now we've got a full 85mm shock. So there's lots and lots of suspension up front. Very, very little suspension out back, although there is some. You can see that there definitely is some in the back, but not much. Maybe it's 10mm, maybe 12. So when you get the lid on, the truck actually likes to have the rear end sitting flat. So basically what we've done here is we've made the truck articulate in the nose, and by having the tail almost solid, you can have a look there. We get tons and tons and tons of travel in the front, very little travel in the back. And that's important when you're comping in a truck, as far as we're concerned anyways. Our favorite geometry is to have the tail of the truck really solid, have the front of the truck really loose. And so I know we're giving away one of our tricks here, but that's the whole point, is to get everybody to have the best results they can with the trucks they're using. So I want to go over the lighting a little bit here, because we're using a special HeyOK controller, which I think he's just released. This little lighting controller hooks in line with your throttle and the ESC, so the channel actually allows us to use headlamps, braking lamps, braking meaning they work as a tail light when you're driving, to have a dim tail light, and then they come on as brakes when you go into neutral. There's a reverse plug, and in reverse, of course, only the reverse lights come on that plug. There's a forward function, which means anytime you have forward trigger, you get a lamp on that position. There is a flasher position, and the flashers are really cool because the flashers don't actually do anything until the truck is stationary without motion for somewhere around 30 seconds to a minute. And at that point you get all of your four-way flashers to start blinking. So the truck is in motion and obviously nothing's happening, and so it starts to flash. And that comes in handy too when you put your truck down somewhere and sort of forget about it. I think your neighbor might say to you, "Hey, what's going on with your truck? The lights are flashing." That'll remind you. So this is the summary of where we're at with our GCM's very first Toyota pickup truck build. We have full interior planned for this truck, as well as driver and a whole bunch of accessories, and there's a lot of good stuff going on with this. It's a beautiful truck. We really enjoyed putting it together, and being able to ride it on the custom A-13 diffs and getting the truck set up, I think we're going to have a great time comping on this one. And so that's the GCM's first Toyota build in our new GCM scale garage, and we'll give you an update shortly.